Thanks very much, Cathaoirleach. First of all, Minister, you were actually in my hometown a few years ago of Callan. It was actually a similar day to the weather we're having today, and there is some good projects like the one you were there for that day happening in some of our towns and our villages, so that is to be welcome. But I will say that there is still outstanding issues, as my colleagues have said, and I apologise in advance for anyone that has heard me talk about this before, because it's one of the things that really, really bothers me in relation to the constituency of Carlow Kilkenny and transport, and it's the train. So we have the same train timetable that we've had since I was in college, which I hate to have to admit that was 20 years ago, but it was, and we actually still have the same. 6:35 is the last train you can get to Kilkenny. And I have raised it in here before because, you know, we are encouraging people to use public transport, and I would love to be able to use public transport, but unfortunately it's not an option for myself or for any of my colleagues within that constituency, because they're in the same situation. And obviously that affects not just us, but everybody that's in the area. Also, we just recently have a new local link bus to Carlow Town, which was very welcome, but unfortunately it won't be serving the villages outside of the town. I think this is a missed opportunity in terms of that connectivity and encouraging people as well, because there's a huge amount of people, particularly in the housing environment we're in at the moment, that would love to live in rural Ireland. They might originally be from there, or else they might be looking to relocate, and it's not an option if transport isn't an option. So that's one we really need to get to grips with properly in our rural towns and villages. And the other one is in relation to broadband, because it's an issue that comes up consistently, and we have very unusual situations. We actually have a situation in Callan where part of the town has been serviced really well with broadband, and then there's like 2 or 3 streets that just seem to be totally excluded from it and are being told they have to wait another year or two. And again, that affects people if they're trying to potentially work from home, which is great that that opportunity is there for so many people now, but obviously it's not realistic if you can't access the broadband. I also wanted to mention something in relation to the rural community and also about the child poverty, because Children's Rights Alliance last week launched their Children's Rights Alliance Poverty Monitor, and it showed a basket of healthy groceries for a family living in a rural area was €169 compared to 147 in an urban area, and we do know that food poverty is a big issue. And particularly it affects rural areas, I suppose, differently. But I'm hoping that the unit that we've heard about in the Taoiseach's department, the Child Poverty Unit, will examine the rural-urban dynamic for children living in rural areas. However, I am very concerned, I suppose, that was announced in December and we're into June, and we really haven't heard very much about what exactly is happening in that situation. One of the most common issues businesses contact my office about is the NBI, as I've just already said. I have cases of it literally being laid along the road in front of a rural business, but for some reason people get left out of it, and it's really, really frustrating. I want to just briefly mention something that I think is a really good initiative, and it's actually been rolled out by the Kilkenny Leader Partnership, and I think we should look at this type of a model and see, can we replicate it in other towns and villages. It's called the Blue Towns Community Broadband Network. So it's developed as a pilot programme in the village of Piltown in South Kilkenny, and the community in Piltown developed an award-winning fibre to premises broadband network. It's community owned. So that means obviously any funds generated are going back into the community. It's high capacity broadband for the community, and it's transformed. People are able to study in the area, people are able to work from home potentially, and then any benefits are coming back to the community. And it's initiatives like this that I really think need to be encouraged and rolled out to other villages and towns. Well, I said there is some changes happening. There is still an awful lot of progress to be made, and I think as well we need to remember the role of the GP in rural Ireland. I met with some GPs recently from a rural community that are really doing excellent work in their area, and often they're kind of more than just a GP service. They're kind of the first port of call for a lot of issues someone might be experiencing, and we need to remember their place in the rural community as well, and that they are also a small rural business. But I would think a lot of people listening to this debate from rural Ireland do feel that an awful lot more needs to be done, particularly around transport, broadband, and elements of poverty that very much are very, very different than urban areas. Garmagat Cianclara.